pianist, singer, and music educator for over 20 years in her first career. After marrying her husband, Larry Young, who is former CEO of Dr. Pepper, her life changed as they moved from the Midwest to Eastern Europe, then to Chicago, Minneapolis, and then a brief retirement in California. They soon found themselves in Dallas, Texas, and called it home. During these changes, much information was gleaned in working through balance of life and work. Colette's company, Execumate, E-X-E-C-U, capital M-A-T-E, emerged, and she coaches and speaks to groups on skills of life balance, plus rising to the top. She shares a journey of unending opportunities, fearless decisions, and win-by-choice outcomes through attitude, adaptability, and accountability. Besides Execumate, Colette owns the 1024 Ranch near Commerce. Larry and Colette are co-chairs of the Boys and Girls National Alumni Club. Colette serves as a national trustee for the Boys and Girls Club Southwest area and also is a board member for the Commerce Boys and Girls Club. Larry served for many years on the club's national board. Their philanthropy extends beyond that to churches, plus local and national groups that serve disabled veterans, adults with disabilities, and children's groups. Please help me welcome Colette Young.
Very much. Wyman is a great friend of mine, and he and I are in the business of friendship and laughing. And let me tell you, business is good. Okay. My husband is really the great speaker, and I'm going to just steal one of his ways of speaking, and he calls it the 5 B's. Has anybody heard about, if you're a speaker, have you ever heard about the 5 B's? Well, he made it up, and it's called Be Brief, Baby, Be Brief. Okay? So Larry and I have had quite the journey of our 34 years of marriage. We met when I was about 32, he was 33, so I was playing the piano at a hotel, I was teaching music, I was writing music, I had a recording studio, I was working 20 hours a day, practically sleeping 4, and he was working in mid-management for Pepsi. And so he was quite busy, and he would bring his customers out to where I was working. It was a big Holiday Inn, and it was a atrium, and I was playing the piano and singing, and he'd bring his customers in, and it took me quite a long time to get him to bring his customers over by the piano so I could get to know him. But anyway, that's a whole book right there, how we got together, but he became my best friend. And that becomes a powerful thing. And then when you get married, it becomes more powerful, and I call it the power of 2 as we go through our journey. And one of the fascinating things about us is that we both listen to this inner voice inside of us, no matter from that beginning time until today. We listen to that inner voice, and it directs us and guides us in what we're doing. I will tell you that one morning, we both got up at 5 o'clock. He left by 5:45, I left by 6 o'clock. Stayed very busy, and one morning, in my groggy state of holding on to a cup of coffee, Larry said, we lived in Missouri at the time, he said, do you ever think about moving? And I said, well, later to think about this. This took a lot of courage to bring this up. So I said, well, I don't know, what are you talking about? He said, well, how about Warsaw? I said, Warsaw, Missouri, are you kidding me? It's like a crossroads out there, And he said, no, Warsaw, Poland. So that was a lot of food for the thought for the day. So we went to a cultural training that the company Pepsi sent us to, and it was in Colorado Springs. And in this cultural training, there were 4 couples. And they offered a lot of information, which at the time I didn't see too valuable, but there was one thing that they said that stuck out in my mind. And they said, in these international moves, 3 out of 4 couples will not make it. And I looked around and there was 4 couples of us. And if you know me, as Wyman knows me, you know that I was not gonna be that failure. And I decided right then that I was gonna try my best, help support my husband, and hopefully be a trailing spouse. Well, we went to go look-see over in Warsaw, which means you go look at it and scout it and decide if you really, really want to go. And I told Larry on the side, I said, no, look, I've got this job I've worked up to for 17 years. I'm on the higher paying scale. I've got this music business. I'm performing. I thought I was doing pretty good. And I said, I'll come and visit you over in Warsaw on those school teacher holidays, because you're gonna be busy anyway. Well, we got over there and he took off for a week and left me, and I'm looking around and there's these beautiful 6-foot Polish girls and long hair with legs up to here, not even clothes on. He came back in a week and he said, did you find me an apartment to live in? I said, no, I found us a big house. So, being a newlywed of 4 years, I decided I was not going to be left behind.
I love it.
So, during that time, I did glean a lot of information, and later formed a company called Execumate, and this is kind of how it formed. When I got there, I decided to apply for a music job at American Embassy School. There were 200 kids there. There was they were from 32 different countries. So it was quite special, and it was on the grounds of a palace and also a church. And so it was my classroom. If I could get this job, I found it later, but my classroom was where they had all the secret meetings there for the Underground Railroad. That's pretty special. You could just feel it when you walked in because it was on tiers and it was kind of down in the ground. But anyway, I did get that job, and I was so proud. I walked in and the guy said, you won't believe this, my music teacher just resigned last week to go back to the States. Wasn't that wonderful? And so I took that job for 5 years, and it was quite the experience. I did see a lot of problems with the trailing spouses that came following the corporate executives at the time. And a lot of them weren't trying, a lot of them were feeling sorry for themselves. Some of them felt like they had to be there out of obligation. But, I talked to them. I found myself that person helping them, helping this and that. So one of the things I did was I kind of set up what made up Larry and I. And then I could help these couples, or mainly the trailing spouses. And then later, after we left there, I could speak to other couples and coach these trailing spouses. The first thing I said was accountability that made Larry and I, we were truly adults when we met and got married. So accountability, I was in charge of my own happiness. He was in charge of his own happiness. And, I'm half of the team, and it was only my part. If I didn't like it, I could change it. The next thing was attitude. We all wake up every morning, we all have problems no matter where we are in our lives. Right now, sometimes it's like knees that don't want to work, but we're in charge of our attitudes, and it's usually we should have a positive mental attitude. At the time I was teaching, I didn't know who Charles Swindoll was, but I knew I found this big, nice thing that he'd written, and it was on a poster, and I had it up in my classroom for 17 years, and then 5 more years over in Poland. And it was about attitude. How many know who that is? Charles Swindoll. Okay. And he's from Texas, right? And he's from Dallas area, right? Well,
Houston
I didn't
area.
have Dallas in my mind or Texas in my mind, but I know I found this. And the most important thing it said, he wrote, I'm convinced that life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And you know, I read that every day. And everything in my life I've tried to make it positive, an adventure. You know, the everyday living is your life. You know, you waste it, it's gone. I had musician friends that got involved in drugs and alcohol, and one of my friends told me one time, he said, you know, I actually cannot remember 10 years of my life. I can't even imagine wasting one day. So attitude. So when I was talking to these corporate people, you know, you've got to choose an attitude every day. It's going to be an adventure. It's not always going to be fun, but it could be quite fun. Acceptance. Larry and I believe that, you know, you should make a 1-year plan, 5-year, 10-year, lifelong plan. The lifelong plan is to stay married to each other, right? And so you've got to have a plan, especially if you're young. You can't be in it a short time. You got to think, I'm in this for the long haul. And I want this to be a good thing. And then absolute support. You know, the bonus of absolute support is just trying to outgive each other. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of take a little detour and tell you that Larry and I grew up in Christian faith-based homes. And in our churches, we were taught, and the Bible teaches, that you should give minimum 10%. And when I was a child, my dad handed me $1, which I wouldn't say he ever did, but he probably was less than that. I gave 10% in the offering plate at church. I was taught that when I was a little child, and Larry was too. So whenever we got married, there was no conversation over it. It was like, yes, whatever we make, 10% goes to the Lord, and then more on top of that's the bonus. So the bonus was each other, and the bonus was that we had like minds in our giving. Well, this gives you a great balance in your life because, you know, trying to outgive each other in your marriage or trying to outgive each other in what you do for each other is great. Now, Larry, whenever he was working in his career, all those years, I would get up first and I would make his coffee and I put there, and I put toothpaste on his toothbrush every morning right there. Well, since we're retired, I'm the person that lays in bed for an extra 10 minutes. And he brings me the coffee, so that's kind of sweet, isn't it? So
No toothpaste though, huh?
that's okay. I put more on, you know. That's a good point. Okay, so going back to that voice that becomes a philanthropic voice. I love the Rotary Club. One time I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I played the piano for an event my friend invited me to, and she's been involved in over 30 years of it, so I've been real familiar. And it was real special today that your happy bucks go to the Northeast Boys and Girls Club, because Boys and Girls Club is so important to Larry and I. If you've ever known a club kid, the statistics show that most of them, 60% say that the club saved their life because it's an after-school program. When the parents aren't there, they can still be in his program, get fed 2 meals before they even go home, and help with their work at school, get help with, you know, all the skills, life skills. Double back up here. Okay, so I appreciate that you give to Boys and Girls Club, especially the one in Northeast Texas. And if you're looking for something to get involved in, then I will grab you and pull you right to that besides Rotary. Rotary and the Boys and Girls Club. It's a great organization. When Larry retired, again, we retired once at 50, and he was on a golf course, and these guys were playing golf with him. And they said, what do you do? And he said, well, I was a past person in Pepsi. And they said, do you have a non-compete contract? He said, well, no, I'm retired. So, long story short, they hired him to be CEO of Dr. Pepper in Dallas. then Larry's always had an interest in hunting and cattle. He was raised on a farm, I was not. So he said, you know, I think it'd be interesting to have a hunting ranch. So before he retired, we just decided we put a dot, we're in Dallas and like an hour around so we could travel back. And all brought us here to Commerce, Texas. And you know, we feel like that this is not just a business, you know, we've been employed, we've done lots of things, but we feel like that if we can bring commerce into Commerce, Texas, see, everything kind of just matches up, doesn't it? Isn't life great? And so if we thought we could bring jobs to this place and bring, you know, anything we could to this area, that's what that inner voice is telling us to do. So that's kind of our long story, very short, how Larry and I got to Commerce, Texas. And we love being here. We love the people here. We love that everybody, I call them sleepers. You know, I grew up in a small town. We all had those people in our town that contributed in every little way. And I just love it that you can be sitting next to these guys, and I call them the senators. You know, we go have coffee with, and you find out one of them's an author. Maybe they wrote, you know, 12 books. You know, one of them was a professor in college, you know, or ran the college, right? And what's so great is no one's out there tooting their horn, you know? Everybody's got a purpose and a place in a small community. It's so much fun to know people in this community. And I'm so glad I know Wyman. He's brought me here into these different organizations, and I appreciate him. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But meantime, I want you to listen to that voice inside of you. See what it's telling you to do, where it leads you to go, the people that you need to visit with, and be part of the community. Thank you.